Ontario. A big storm looming. Nadine Powell joining me for today. And, you know, a lot of people on social media, Nadine, are saying in Winnipeg specifically, they're seeing light snow and they're like, is this it? But no, of course, unfortunately, more is coming. I know you're going to dive into the radar and the current conditions right now.
Yes, certainly. It is just beginning, Nicole, and you know, a lot of authorities have been warning residents that now is not the time today or tomorrow to be heading out onto the roads. As you can see, very expansive warnings, which include blizzard warnings. And taking a look at some of the current conditions right now, you'll see temperatures a few degrees below the freezing mark, but certainly it takes us to southern Manitoba, where we are looking at that snowfall pushing in right now. So you can see there, as we take a look at our radar imagery, there you can see widespread snowfall that is just beginning to make its way across southeast sections of Saskatchewan, extending up to a Dauphin, southern tip of the Interlake region for us. And this extends all the way into Northwestern Ontario. So major routes impacted by this: Highway 17 across Northwestern Ontario, Highway 1 across southern Manitoba. And you can see there the deeper blues. That's an indication of perhaps the snowfall intensity beginning to pick up for us across southern Manitoba. And this is a very populated area across the region. So certainly many will be impacted by this. And of course, the winds will certainly be an issue for us as we continue into this afternoon. So certainly in terms of the impacts, you know, Nicole, we are looking at widespread road closures for us. Power outages will certainly be an issue for us with those winds on the gusty side. And as we continue into this afternoon, those winds possibly gusting, 70, 80 kilometers per hour. So this is not only a today story, Nicole, but also taking us into tomorrow as well, Nicole.
100%. And as we take a look at the watches and warnings that are in place, Nadine, it's a lot of pinks, but there is a bit of a difference. That darker kind of reddish pink is where we have blizzard warnings in place. So Dauphin down to Winkler. Winnipeg, you are in the winter storm warning, so just below that blizzard warning criteria. We've got rainfall warnings, though, for Sudbury, snowfall warnings around Atikokan. So it is a mess of everything. Now, as Nadine was mentioning, we do have the heavy snowfall in southern Manitoba, northwestern Ontario. The winds will be strong through today and for tomorrow as well. So impacts, we've got the school closures, we've got the potential for power outages as well, and an increased flood threat as we look beyond this storm. So those northwest winds gusting up to 60, 70 kilometers an hour through today. While we will see a lull in the snow this evening and through tomorrow, the problem is the snow is going to pile up and it's going to be whipping all around. By Friday morning, more of a focus to northwestern Ontario for the ongoing storm. And it's not till we get to our long weekend, of course, that we do have more of a clearing trend. Forecast projected totals are 50 to 75 centimeters from Melita to Winkler, Winnipeg 30 to 40, Regina 15 to 20, and heavy amounts here through northwestern Ontario as well. So a lot of people are remembering the blizzard of 1997 in Winnipeg. Over a few days, you picked up 48 centimeters of snow. Will we beat that this round? Well, it could be 30 to 40 centimeters, so we'll keep an eye on this storm, certainly, for you in terms of the statistics. What's interesting about this storm is you've got the multi-day blizzard in the prairies, the periods of heavy rain through northern Ontario, but taking you through southern Ontario, there's a chance of thunderstorms with the dynamics in place with the warm front and the cold front racing through. So I do want to just give you a quick highlight on what's going on there. We've got heavy downpours moving over cottage country, Sault Ste. Marie. Those sort of white streaks that you're seeing here sort of might be hard to see unless I zoomed in a little bit more, but those are lightning strikes. So we are seeing some thunderstorm potential today here, and the heavy downpours, unfortunately, in northern Ontario is a problem because the ground is frozen currently, so it's going to be hard to absorb all of this moisture. We do have Mark Robinson live. He made it to Winnipeg, and right now, Mark, it looks like a light coating of snow is starting to fill in at this hour, but of course you can tell us more.
Yeah, you know what? It's actually not too bad. Now, I would say about half an hour ago, this street right here, completely just wet. There wasn't that much snow at all. The sidewalks had a bit of snow, but it's changing, just almost minute to minute as the cold, begins to come in here and the snow begins to fall. But definitely, the city's still moving at this point. No big problems. We do definitely I've seen some of the winds. Now, keep in mind, this is my first really good prairie storm, so I'm right in downtown Winnipeg at the moment. But I have got to check out sort of the southwest side of the city eventually and just see those winds as they come come right across the plains, all through the prairies. And I've been told by a few fellow chasers out here that the winds can get quite crazy, and that's what really drives these blizzard conditions that we're potentially going to get through the Winnipeg area. But definitely right now, things not looking too bad. Things are moving, not too, can sort of move in, you can move around the city, no problem. But Nadine, I think you've got a little bit more details of what's going on out here.
Yes, certainly, Mark. And you touched on one of the critical components of this storm, the winds. And they are going to intensify throughout the day for today. Focusing on southern Manitoba for us, because that's where some of the strongest winds will be as we continue through the afternoon. You'll see as we head through the morning, through the afternoon, Dauphin down to Brandon and across to Winnipeg, 70, 80 plus kilometers per hour taking us through the afternoon and evening. So as we continue into tomorrow as well, despite the fact that the wind gusts will ease a bit, it is still quite strong because we'll see those gusts into Thursday, perhaps gusting over 60 kilometers per hour. And through Thursday as well, we're still dealing with that snowfall. So you see, as we head through this afternoon into the evening hours, there you can see some brighter hues of blues. That indicates perhaps some heavier intensity of snowfall. So the snowfall rates through this evening ramping up at the same time that the winds are also increasing as well. And you can see this extends all the way into Northwestern Ontario, where just north of Highway 17, west of Armstrong, we're continuing to see that snowfall pick up in intensity for us as we continue through the day on Thursday for us. And by Thursday morning, the low pressure system pulling into Northwestern Ontario, but still on the back side of it across Manitoba into Saskatchewan on Thursday. We're looking at that snow, but it's not until we head into Friday we are seeing that snowfall intensity ease. However, the winds will still be an issue for us. So still widespread heavy snowfalls. The majority of this is still to come for us across the region. That's going to be happening throughout the afternoon and evening for today. And even as we head into tomorrow, while the intensity of the snowfall wanes, it certainly will be upticking for us into Northwestern Ontario. So again, very dangerous conditions out on the roads for us. Authorities are advising residents to stay off the roads. Closures, we've seen school closures and road closures. So this is certainly going to be quite the storm for the next 48 hours or so.
That's right. And just the size of it, Nadine, I mean, it is a huge monster system, and it's got a little bit of everything in its path. We have the blizzard warnings, the winter storm warnings. We've got rainfall warnings in northern Ontario, southern Quebec as well, the potential for thunderstorms too along this front for parts of Ontario. Let's dive into the warnings that are currently in place. Winnipeg, it's hard to differentiate the color, but that sort of darker red is blizzard warnings. So that's Dauphin down to Winkler. Winnipeg, you are in the winter storm warning. Same thing over towards Armstrong, but it's the rainfall warning in green towards northern sections of Ontario, including Sudbury. I've been watching the current visibility, and it just continues to go down, especially here in southern Manitoba as we get darker blues on the radar, which is an indication of heavier snow filling in that the radar is picking up. So Regina down to 2 kilometers, Winnipeg 604 meters at this hour right now. Now we are going to see those northwest winds continue to be gusty through the day today, easing in intensity, but still the problem is, even as it eases in intensity, the snow will be piled up on the ground and the winds will whip it around. And then by Friday morning, northwestern Ontario still going to be seeing this storm through the day before it eases. Good Friday, not necessarily a good Friday weather-wise. Projections for snowfall totals, this blue color is indicating 50 to 75 centimeters potentially. Winnipeg 30 to 40, Kenora 20 to 30, Regina 15 to 20, so a little bit less in terms of the snowfall for you. The bullseye kind of hitting areas in the extreme border of southern Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. I want to show you images of the blizzard back in 1997 that hit Winnipeg. It was a crippling storm that caused power outages, tricky for travel, and in the wake of it we had issues because of the fact that there was so much snow and it got really warm quickly, so there was a huge flood concern in the wake of it. Now, the amount of snow that Winnipeg picked up was 48 centimeters with that, We're going to see if we rival that this time. But Mark, you're starting to sort of see the winds pick up, at least in Winnipeg right now. I mean, just even an hour ago, it looked different from what it does now.
Oh yeah, very different. The road behind me here, it was basically just wet. There was no real snow on the road. Now it's almost fully covered. I'm just measuring the winds here because I'm standing in the middle of the city. You can have one of two effects. Often, what you'll get if the winds aren't really blowing sort of right down in one direction, or right down the sort of the canyons that are formed by the buildings, you won't have that strong a wind. But if the wind sort of align with the streets, you can get a bit of a wind tunneling effect, so it can be very, very strong. At this point, the winds aren't quite aligned with the building, so I'm only getting about 15 to 16 kilometers an hour, but I'll tell you, when they do get a gust, it is biting. I've only got about a -1 temperature right now, but that's still, it's almost like a dry cold. I'm very used to, in southern Ontario, the very damp cold. Out here, it's very, very dry. It's a little bit different. Checking out the snowfall right now, it's almost like little grapple pellets. So there's a sort of mix of snowflakes and a bunched up little tiny balls of snow. So it's quite an interesting snowfall so far. Of course, everybody who's out here is probably not saying that it's interesting. They're probably using other words for that, other than what I am, but this is just the beginning. This is going to be a long duration storm. This is not one of these storms that comes in, hits, and goes. This one's going to stick around for a while. But Nadine, you probably got a few more details on that. I'm just on the ground here showing you what's going on.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And one of the reasons why storms at this time of year can bring such heavy snowfall is because we are starting to see now that transition from winter into summer. So the spring shoulder season, we start to get a punch of more moisture moving in, and we still have quite a bit of cold air to work with. But as we take a look now at some of the current wind gusts for us, it is starting to pick up for us, particularly across southern Manitoba. You'll see those gusts across the region, 50 to 60 plus kilometers per hour out of the northeast. And we've been talking about this with the blizzard warning and the criteria. It's the 4-4-4 rule. Winds sustained at 40 kilometers or greater, and we're certainly going to be reaching that threshold for today. Visibility down to 400 meters or less, and conditions persisting for 4 hours or more. And you'll notice that really snowfall accumulation is not a factor here, but it's really the winds and the visibility, some of the primary components with this. And we certainly have that and more across the region. So continuing this morning into the afternoon, we're looking at widespread gusts here all the way from southeast Saskatchewan and into northwestern Ontario, 60, 70 plus kilometers per hour, and really ramping up for us as we continue through the afternoon. And you'll notice here the circulation just across North Dakota. This is where the actual low pressure center is. So we're on the northern side of it. We'll get those winds coming out of the north and northeast for us today through tomorrow. Now, as we head into tomorrow morning and into the afternoon, a bit of a northwest flow, but still quite gusty for us, especially through the Interlake region in Manitoba. And through Thursday, we are still looking at that snowfall, perhaps intensity not as great. However, the winds will still be gusty. So a lot of blowing and drifting snow, a lot of snow drifts as well on the road. So many of the major highways will be impacted by this as we continue not only through the rest of today, but into tomorrow as well. And Nicole, this story continues into northwestern Ontario as well.
Yes, with snow in the northwest, but then you've got areas that are in rainfall warnings, such as Sudbury, the shores of Lake Superior, seeing thunderstorms at this hour. So this monster storm is bringing a little bit of everything. Nadine gave us a good look at what's going on in southern Manitoba. The snow starting to fill in right now, the visibility going down. The winds are picking up a little bit. And, you know, Ida, who works here at the Weather Network, just took a nice screenshot of the visibility, what it looked like before and after, and it's certainly starting to get worse. Now, the warnings and watches that are in place here include blizzard warnings from Dauphin down to Winkler. Winnipeg over towards Armstrong towards the north, that's a winter storm warning for you because you're just below that blizzard warning criteria. But blizzard or not, it's probably going to look much like you would think a blizzard looks like outside. Wind gusts have gotten up to 57 kilometers an hour for Winnipeg, 47 for Regina. We expect them to get up to possibly 70 kilometers an hour through the day today, and the visibility visibility is just at 604 meters for Winnipeg, a bit better for Kenora as well as for Regina too at this hour if you're on the roads. Now, northwesterly winds are going to continue to be dominant through today, an easing in the snowfall, but the problem is it will continue to pile up and fly around not only today but into tomorrow. By Friday morning, a snapshot of the lighter blue, so certainly not as much of an issue for southern Saskatchewan, but still holding on to strong winds here in northwestern Ontario and even around Winnipeg and Sprague too. So it doesn't really clear until we head into your Saturday. Now, Kim McDonald has more details on this storm.
Let's take this story back 25 years and set the scene for a similar scenario that's happening this week in Manitoba. In April of 1997, a blizzard brought a whopping 48 centimeters of snow to Winnipeg and as much as 50 centimeters to surrounding areas. The only way people could get around was by snowmobile. Fast forward a few weeks, as temperatures rose, the snow began to melt, leading to historic flooding that spring. 28,000 people were forced from their homes and will likely never forget it. This week, a forecast similar to that of 1997 is playing out, making residents of the Red River Valley rightfully concerned about a repeat of both the storm and the flood that followed. Let's bring in meteorologist Kevin McKay to discuss why it's unlikely that this spring will mirror the $500 million disaster of a quarter century ago.
This blizzard's going to be impacting the same area, over 250,000 square kilometers of drainage for the Red River, and that's going to be seeing about a 30 centimeter snow base. That's the equivalent water of what goes through the Red River in Winnipeg every year. So how are we going to avoid flooding with this falling in one storm? Well, our jet stream is going to be our friend. It's staying south of the Canadian prairies. That's going to allow Arctic air to dominate for the next 10 days or so, allowing for a slow, gradual melt.
All right, and now we bring it back to what's going on the ground, and we're seeing this huge system starting to move in. The radar showing the snow filling in southern Manitoba, and what's interesting is how it's bringing such different weather to parts of Ontario. But Mark is in Winnipeg. You made it just in time for things to pick up there. You know, just about an hour ago, I was noticing people on Twitter saying, "Is this it? I don't see anything yet." So maybe you can tell everyone what's coming.
Yeah, this is it. This is you know, the one thing I think everyone's expecting is this big impact storms where everything dumps on the ground all at once and then that's it. This is not a sprint. This is more like a marathon. This is similar to some of the systems we see in southern Ontario, where they come in and the low sort of sits near southern Ontario and just sort of sits there for a while and it gradually moves out. This one is going to do something similar, except just a little further west. So it's going to sort of come up into northern Ontario, sit there, and of course drawing all that cold air at the same time, bringing up that Gulf moisture. So that's what we're going to be seeing, but this is going to be sitting around for a while. Probably going to see it in a couple of waves. This is the first wave today. We may get a bit of a break in Winnipeg, and then it's sort of a second wave coming through on Thursday. So that is sort of what we're looking at, is this long duration event as opposed to sort of everything hitting and going very quickly. But right now, if you turn around, we're just back here looking on the roads at this point, not too bad. People are moving fairly well. City is still moving at this point. I have talked to a few locals that said, you know, the one thing that's missing is bread and milk and staples in the grocery stores. So this is one of these things, Nadine, that I've got a lot of snacks in my hotel room. Hopefully I will survive on chips and pop.
Well, all the best to you, Mark. And this is certainly just the beginnings of this storm. Nicole was mentioning that she had been seeing some tweets about folks wondering, when are things going to ramp up? Well, we still have all of today, and we still do have tomorrow to get through. So let's take you to the radar imagery, and we'll see there widespread snowfall extending all the way from southern Saskatchewan up through the southern Interlake region and into northwestern Ontario. Notice here, this is just where our mixing line is, just north of Fort Francis, coming into North Dakota area. But certainly, this is a huge storm because the southern component of it extends into northeastern Ontario and cottage country, where we're actually getting into some thunderstorms for us across the region. And that's going to be the risk across southern Ontario for today. But getting back to our snow story for us, we're seeing just the first few hours of accumulations for us. So that's the radar. This is some of the observations, so more of the ground truth for us in terms of the current conditions. We're seeing that being reflected there across Saskatchewan and heading into southern Manitoba, where we're seeing temperatures a little bit below the freezing mark. Now the winds, that's going to be the next one, the next troublemaker for us, which is really the added component bringing in the blizzard conditions for us and reduced visibility and whiteouts. And we'll see those gusts right now, just about 50, 60 kilometers per hour, and continuing to ramp up as we head through the rest of this afternoon. So that ties into the criteria for a blizzard warning. It's the 4-4-4 rule, sort of easy to remember. We have those sustained winds, not necessarily the gust, but the sustained winds. So this is what it will be like for quite some time, over 40 kilometers per hour. We're looking at visibility down to 400 meters or less. And of course, these conditions persisting for at least 4 hours. And certainly we will see this not only through today, but into tomorrow as well. So as we head through this afternoon and evening, as the low is sliding, just grazing around the U.S. border there and through southern Manitoba. Intensity of snowfall picking up for us. That takes us into the evening, and that continues to extend into Northwestern Ontario. You'll see once we head into tomorrow afternoon, still looking at widespread light to moderate snowfall across the southern prairies. The heaviest snowfall, Nicole, will be pushing into Northwestern Ontario, but the winds will continue to be certainly the factor with this storm.
That's right, because even if the winds aren't, the strongest you've ever seen through this storm, as the snow piles up, it's going to whip it all around for the next few days. Now, the radar is starting to get a little bit darker in terms of the color blue, and that's just an indication of some heavier snowfall being picked up on the radar. So it's a little bit lighter across southern Saskatchewan at this hour. There is a blizzard warning in place for Dauphin to Winkler. Now, Winnipeg, you are in that sort of lighter pink color. That is a winter storm warning, which extends to Armstrong up to northern Ontario. Sudbury, that's a rainfall warning for you with the exact same system. Over the past 24 hours, peak winds have gotten up to 57 kilometers an hour for Winnipeg, 46 for Regina. We could see the winds get up to close to 70 with this event moving through today and tomorrow. Now, visibility, it's staying at 604 meters for Winnipeg at this hour, 4 kilometers for Regina, but I expect this to continue to drop over the next few hours. So if you do need to get anything done, do it early. For the day, northwesterly winds, strong winds whipping the snow around tomorrow. This is a snapshot of Friday morning where the winds will ease a bit, but still northwestern Ontario are going to see the heavier snowfall, especially in the extreme north, before by Saturday, you're kind of here, Melita to Winkler, 50 to 75 centimeters of snow. Winnipeg up to Gimli, it is going to be 30 to 40 for you, and Dryden to Kenora, 20 to 30 centimeters of snow. A lot of people in Winnipeg might remember the blizzard that hit you back in 1997, and that was a crippling storm which brought 48 centimeters of snowfall over the few days that it was in effect. So we'll see if this round we beat that amount. Certainly not a record that we want to beat, but that is just something that I know a lot of people who lived through that are thinking about. And, we have a lot of other stats to look at here. The biggest daily April snowfall for Winnipeg was back in 1872 with 33 centimeters of snow. So possibly breaking a lot of records here. Mark Robinson is in Winnipeg. He's going to be there through this event. And Mark, you're already seeing things starting to pick up a little bit. It's going to get more wild for you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Now, I was talking to some locals. Definitely nobody really wants to stick around too long and talk with me. People want to get going to where they're going. The one local I was talking to, he said, he walked out and said, this looks like a zombie apocalypse. He's like, there's just nobody out here. And I think I have to agree with them. Now, I'm not as familiar with Winnipeg. It's fantastic that I get out here and get a chance to actually come and spend some time here. I would know how many people were out here if this was Toronto, but from what he was telling me, in Winnipeg, this is usually quite busy at this point. So I think people are taking this storm seriously. And of course, as you were saying, Nicole, he compared it to the 97 storm. That was the one he was a bit concerned about. And he said what he often watches for to see where that low is going, to see how the conditions are down in places like North Dakota. He was saying that he was watching last night, seeing North Dakota, Bismarck specifically, getting hit, and he said, this is where if that area gets hit, it's going to come straight through Winnipeg rather than being a little bit south. So definitely people are bracing for this storm in and around the Winnipeg area. We'll see if Winnipeg gets lucky, if most of the snow is just to the west, and kind of hoping that that's where it will be and the city will be spared a pretty big hit. But Nadine, you can tell me, am I still hoping, or am I still seeing the fact that a lot of the snow will be to the west, or is Winnipeg itself going to get hit?
Well, Mark, I think if you think about the difference between perhaps 30 centimeters and 50 centimeters, that's 20 centimeters. But if you've got to shovel it and you have to drive in that, doesn't really make a difference. Certainly, this is going to be a wide-reaching storm for the region. And as we take a look at the radar imagery here, I'll show you wide-reaching from this perspective. You can see that snow extending back into the prairies. But on the flip side, into northern Ontario to the east and into southern Ontario, we are looking at the warm side of this system pushing in. So as a matter of fact, this is where the center of our low-pressure system is on the northern fringe. We've got the cold and the snow. And typical for this time of year, the shoulder seasons, we get that injection of warmth coming in, and that is certainly tying into the intensification of this system and the risk for thunderstorms that we are seeing now pushing into northeastern Ontario and cottage country for us. But let's just zoom in on southern Manitoba and across northwestern Ontario, because really this is the focus of our live streamer and our blizzard conditions for today. And you can see we have that snowfall continuing for the last couple of hours for us across the region, extending all the way back from the border with Saskatchewan through the southern Interlake region and into northwestern Ontario. So travel anywhere along Highway 17, Dryden toward Kenora, looking at some heavy snowfall. And then once we get into southern Manitoba along Highway 1, we are in the thick of it. So Winnipeg, so to perhaps Portage La Prairie and across over to Brandon, that's where we're seeing some of the heaviest snowfall intensity for us right now. And this really is going to be the case continuing for us as we head in through the next 24 hours or so. The intensity of the snowfall as well as the winds will be picking up for us as we head through the rest of today. So let's time this out for you. So this morning, we certainly have that snowfall continuing across the region. But notice now, once we head through the evening, we're still looking at that heavy snowfall and the winds continuing to whip around for us across southern Manitoba. Now, by Thursday morning, widespread snowfall, Saskatchewan into Manitoba. There will be a couple of pockets you see there where we're still dealing with some heavier intensity snowfall. But certainly the focus of the really heavy intensity pushing into northwestern Ontario with a bit of mixing areas farther east. But certainly Nicole, with these winds for us on Thursday and still widespread moderate intensity snowfall, Thursday really won't be perhaps much better than today.
No, absolutely not. Even if the winds ease, they'll still be whipping around a lot of snow that's on the ground. So as we take a look at the radar, starting to get darker in blue, that's the heavier intensity of snowfall, Brandon, Winnipeg, Kenora as well, mixing even a chance of freezing rain there in the pink popping up. Now I want to show you this picture from Ida, who works here at the Weather Network. She took a picture of the webcam of Winnipeg at 12 a.m. and the contrast between just 6 a.m., the snow starting to fill in, and it'll be interesting to see what this looks like over the next few hours as we are in this winter storm warning for Winnipeg to Dryden up towards northern Ontario. Dauphin to Brandon, Winkler, you are in a blizzard warning, so you meet the criteria in terms of how strong the winds will be over a period of time. But regardless, blizzard warning or not, winter storm still is going to be intense. Winnipeg wind gusts have been up to 57 kilometers an hour, Regina 46 and Kindersley 44. So we are projecting winds potentially up to 70 kilometers an hour. So that's going to reduce your visibility, of course. Current visibility is still at 604 meters for Winnipeg and 2 kilometers for Regina as well. Now, also in on this storm is parts of the U.S., Montana here, snowfall coming down. There is going to be travel issues. You're trying to go into North Dakota or Minnesota today because of the center of this low and where it's positioned right now. So Mark Robinson, you're not in the U.S., you're in Canada, of course, joining us in Winnipeg, where it is going to be a long haul for you And I hope you're at a hotel that has a generator.
Yeah, I hope so too, actually. Well, I'm almost in the center of Canada. I'm just down the street from Portage in Maine. This is Portage behind me. If you've ever heard of Portage in Maine, you kind of know that's sort of the geographic center of Canada. But right here, Portage itself slowly beginning to build up. Now, I haven't seen plows going yet. Expect to see a few of those running around. At this point, though, this is just the beginning of the storm. Some people have been sort of saying, well, where's the storm? Well, don't worry, it's coming, and it's going to be around for a while. The interesting thing about this is, rather than the low pressure system just sort of streaking off to the east, it's sort of coming up, pushing north, and rather than sort of doing east. So that's why we're going to see this long duration event. The other part of this is that this storm system has been producing tornadoes down in the U.S. I've had a few of my chaser friends send some pictures back from Iowa yesterday, definitely producing that. And that's very typical of these large low pressure systems. Produce snow up here in Canada, tornadoes down in the south, and that's just because all that fuel coming all the way up from the Gulf of Mexico, quite literally making it up here to Canada. That's why we're seeing a lot of this snow, is because of that fuel that's being kicked up to the north by this whole system. Sorry, they're just getting snow in the face as they get swirls around the buildings. Nadine, I'll send it in to you now so that I can bundle up.
Oh, yes. Stay warm, Mark. Mark was mentioning the U.S. and the risk for severe weather there. You know, if I take you there, you certainly see that all of these little white dots here, these are lightning strikes with storms that are rolling through the Mississippi Valley. So essentially moving from the Central Plains toward the Mississippi Valley for us. And that is all of that warm air that is coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. And then we add to that the cold air from Canada. And on our side of the border, we're actually dealing with that heavy snowfall and blizzard conditions across the region. So let's just zoom in for us across southern Manitoba and into northwestern Ontario here. And we've been tracking this all the last couple of hours or so through the morning and since our live stream. And you can see there definitely this region continuing to see that heavy snowfall for us throughout this morning. And really, once we head into the afternoon, we'll continue to be dealing with this. And it's not until we head perhaps into Friday when things begin to wind down for us. Because while we'll see some of the heavier intensity snowfall for us for today and into tomorrow morning, we'll still be dealing with gusty winds for us. And with blizzard criteria, we're looking at sustained winds of 40 kilometers per hour. So not necessarily a gust, because with sustained, it's going to be happening over at least 4 hours for us. And we're talking about 24 to 48 hours of dealing with this impacts from this storm here for us. I just want to take your attention into Ontario. You can see there we're also looking at some thunderstorms across the region. So if I just zoom in on some of these areas just to highlight for you, you can see some of those thunderstorms and those lightning strikes moving through north of the Sudbury area and even coming off north of the Paris Sound region heading through Cottage Country. We're looking at those storms, and certainly this is the risk that we continue to see for us for today. So again, Nicole, we will definitely be talking about this system even into Friday, because once it pulls out of the prairies, it's going to continue into northern Ontario, where they've seen heavy snowfall in and around the northwest this past winter.
Yeah, and then I'm also watching the thunderstorms that are firing up around the shores of Lake Superior, around Barrie this morning too, all a part of the same system. Now in Winnipeg, where Mark was, we could see that there were cars kind of moving around, maybe trying to get things done. You can plan for power outages today, because that is certainly a potential. Stock up on food and medication just to be prepared, and a winter emergency kit is certainly a good idea with what is happening for today. A zoomed in look that Nadine was showing you, starting to see things pick up in intensity. It's going to shift north through the day. Estevan, you know, starting to see that light snow at this hour, not in on the action yet for Regina, but you will certainly get there as time goes on in northwestern Ontario too. We've got the blanket of winter storm warnings as well as blizzard warnings. Now Regina not in the warning, but Weyburn, Dauphin to Winkler, that is a blizzard warning. You're sort of the target of it with the strongest winds, but Winnipeg up to northwestern Ontario, a winter storm warning probably is still going to feel like a blizzard with very strong gusty winds and the heavy snowfall. Winnipeg have seen gusts up to 57 kilometers an hour. The visibility, though, has certainly gone down to 604 meters right now. And Mark Robinson is just experiencing it live in Winnipeg right now, where things just continue to look a little bit worse every time we check in.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I'd love to say, hey, you should have been here 5 minutes ago, because the wind was really blowing right down the street. I kept getting it in the face. Right now, though, of course, the wind has calmed down. Everything looks not too bad, but give it a minute. What is interesting, though, is I keep getting a shift from the wind. So sometimes it's coming down the street this way. Sometimes it's coming down Portage this way. So it kind of depends. And that's often what happens in these urban areas, these built-up areas. You get swirls around the buildings. Quite often you're not getting your best wind readings anywhere within the city just because of those buildings. At this point, buildings mostly blocking a lot of the stronger winds, but if you go to the southwest side of the city, that's where you've got nice and clear right across the plains coming in from the US all the way here. Not a lot of things stopping that wind from just blowing straight across. And that, of course, is going to be the big problem for being out and about. A lot of the roads now shut down. Southern Manitoba basically shut down just for people on the major routes, because they don't want people stuck, say, out on the Trans-Canada and have to go out and rescue people. So they're trying to keep everybody in one place. Now, this is a pretty good example of that. If I look down the street, I think I see exactly 2 people, 2 buses, and a few cars. So definitely, people are moving around, but it's just not as busy as you would normally see it. A lot of schools closed down in the Winnipeg and southern Manitoba area, and from what I've heard, this is very rare to have that much of a closure, and I'm sure the kids are loving it because they're getting an extra long weekend.
Well, Mark, the kids might enjoy it because they'll be home and going out and playing in the snow, especially when the temperature isn't as cold. But certainly those winds will be whipping for us. Mark was mentioning some of the buildings blocking some of the strongest winds, but certainly when you get out into the open fields across many of the highways for us, that's where you are likely to see a lot of that blowing snow and reduced visibility because of those gusts. There's nothing to impede the force of that wind and that snow and create those drifts. And you'll see there across southern Manitoba, 50 to 70 kilometers per hour in terms of a current gust. And that's one of the factors, of course, that's tying into our blizzard warning, the 444 rule. But let's take you again to our radar imagery just to show you what's happening. And really, this is going to be we're going to sound almost like a broken record, because during the last few hours or so, this is really where all of the snowfall has been focused for us, and it's going to continue as we head through the next couple of hours. You're seeing we're still into some heavier snowfall right now, and that'll pick up for us. So a lot of the highways, you'll see Highway 1 for us, Highway 75 down toward the North Dakota border, and then as we stretch toward the border with Saskatchewan, Brandon, Melita getting into Highway 13 into Saskatchewan. They're looking at the snow just beginning to creep in. Snow there too will pick up in intensity for us as we continue through this afternoon. And then as we head toward the east as well, as we move from southern Manitoba into northwestern Ontario, slightly different component coming in for us around the border with Minnesota, where we're starting to see a bit of an injection of some slightly milder conditions. However, that changes significantly for us once we cross Highway 17 for us. We're looking at that heavy snowfall continuing across the region. And this is really going to be, the story, Nicole, for tomorrow as well.
So as it fills in today, the winds pick up. Tomorrow, all the snow will be on the ground, and even if the snow eases in intensity, it's still going to be whipping around. So Nadine gave you a good snapshot of what's going on the radar. It's going to continue to shift north and northwestern Ontario, getting in on it. It's those strong northerly winds that are going to get possibly up to 70 kilometers an hour through today. And while the blues get a little bit lighter into Thursday, the problem is that fresh snow that will be on the ground. Northwestern Ontario, still on Friday morning, I'd be worried about travel for you too. So Friday is Good Friday, of course, but not necessarily a good Friday for many of you who are trying to travel through the area, and hopefully there's not too many power outages, but we cannot rule it out with this. Looking at our projected snowfall here, we could see in this light blue 50 to 75 centimeters of snow. So that includes you between Red Lake and Fort Hope. Winnipeg projecting 30 to 40 centimeters. Regina kind of, on the fringe of this, so 15 to 20 centimeters in the forecast for you. Certainly not getting hard as hit there as other areas closer to the border of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Now, a lot of people remember this. The blizzard that hit Winnipeg in 1997 crippled the city, shut it down for days. We've got some video here of what it looked like back then. And over those few days, the city picked up 48 centimeters of snow. So we could potentially beat that with this round coming in. And certainly we are going to be keeping an eye on how things look after the storm, because with that year we had unfortunately some very, very bad flooding because it warmed up very quickly in the wake of that storm. Some other stats to look at here: the biggest April snowfalls in Winnipeg, we go back to 1872. This is for one day, 33 centimeters for Kenora, 36.3 centimeters. So we could be in breaking record territory, certainly, with what's happening over the next few days. What's interesting is we've got this multi-day blizzard in the prairies in northwestern Ontario, but we've got heavy rainfall targeting parts of northern Ontario, and then chance of thunderstorms in the south moving through here, where we've been tracking heavy downpours and lightning strikes today. So a very dynamic, large storm that is affecting millions of people, but it's going to be targeting you in southern Manitoba, including Winnipeg, where Mark Robinson is, with the probably most crippling travel problems, as well as just I think the duration of this is going to be hard for people to deal with. It's just lasting so long.
Yeah, this is definitely not one of those sprint storms where it comes in, it hits, and away it goes. This is more of a marathon storm. So yes, it seems to be slowly coming in. Some people are saying, oh, well, it's not that bad. Well, hold on, it's going to continue through. But that may make it in some ways a little bit easier to deal with, because rather than dumping huge amounts of snow all at once, it'll sort of gradually drop all that snow. Now, one thing I did notice when I was flying in, as we were coming into Winnipeg, you could see down, looking out over the prairies, very wet. A lot of those fields are flooded. A lot of them were waterlogged. So that's definitely an issue. You could actually see the Red River as I came in. It was up, fairly far up, but not yet in full flood stage. But of course, all of this snow hitting the watershed, what is that going to do? I know it's been a big concern. I was talking to a few locals quite literally as we were flying in. They were looking down at the river as well. And the one thing that I said it may be a saving grace is that once this storm passes, that cold air so it's going to sit in place for a little while, allow this snow to melt fairly slowly. So rather than in that snap warm-up that happened in '97, this warm-up may slowly release that water into the Red River and off the watershed, so we may not see quite that amount of flooding. But Nadine, I know this is still going to be a high impact storm here in Winnipeg.
Oh yes, certainly, without question, Mark, for us. And you were talking about snow melt and temperatures. Well, after we see this heavy snowfall, the saving grace, like Mark was alluding to, is the fact that temperatures will stay sub-zero for a bit. So we're not expecting that huge spike in temperatures for that rapid snow melt. But you can see there, in terms of our temperature trend for the next few days for us in Winnipeg, for instance, will remain a little bit below the freezing mark for us until we head into next Wednesday. So next week, that's where we anticipate starting to see a bit of some of that snowfall really melting off. Now, we can get snow melt, of course, when we get into sunny conditions during the day. That top layer of snowfall will be melting off, but certainly that rapid snow melt, we don't have to worry about that right now in the immediate future. But what we do have to worry about, and you see that from the icons there, Thursday and into Friday, blowing snow continuing for us. So with this heavy snowfall across the area, you see that bullseye across southwest Manitoba and even into the Winnipeg region, 30 to 40 centimeters of snowfall. This is certainly quite a heavy snowfall value for us, regardless of what time of the year it happens. And typically in the fall and the spring, Nicole, the shoulder seasons, when we have still quite a bit of moisture and we have the cold, that's when we get the troublesome systems.
Yeah, what a dynamic storm that we're watching here. It is going to be historic, certainly something that people are going to remember and talk about in years to come. But I want to talk about the warnings that are in place, because we do have a winter storm warning here in this lighter pink. The red is where the blizzard warnings are in place. So Winnipeg Winnipeg just outside of that blizzard warning, and then rainfall warnings for places like Sudbury. But even if you're just in a winter storm warning, it's not just a winter storm warning. It'll probably feel like a blizzard out there as the winds continue to pick up, gusting up to 70 kilometers an hour. And with this snowfall coming in, I mean, 50 to 75 centimeters on the high end, Winnipeg 30 to 40 centimeters for you. Taking a quick look at what's going on across our national forecast, we will take you through this storm because it's not just the snow and the multi-day blizzard that we're focused on, but also northern Ontario seeing periods of heavy rain, flooding potential because the ground is quite frozen around Sudbury, Thunder Bay, for example, and you're getting heavy rain, but also a chance of thunderstorms and mild temperatures in southern and eastern Ontario for today as well. So a multifaceted storm for sure. A zoomed in look here at the radar, and I've been tracking the lightning strikes that have been north of Barrie along the shores of Lake Superior. We have seen some lightning strikes as well. But focusing again back on the blizzard, just because you're not in the blizzard warning doesn't again mean that you aren't going to see a big storm. But what exactly is a blizzard? Let's check it out.
The blizzard. These are epic snowstorms that greatly reduce our visibility down to, get this, 400 meters or less. It's because the winds, they are sustained at least 40 kilometers per hour or greater. And these snowstorms are also associated with heavy snowfall, blowing snow, and these conditions last for at least 4 hours or longer.
Again, so yes, a good clarification of what a blizzard warning is. We've got that criteria, and you are in the blizzard warning for Dauphin down to Winkler. But, you know, Mark, Winnipeg's in the winter storm warning, but I think that we're just going to be kind of on the fringe of, you know, blizzard warning criteria. So still something to take seriously.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the one thing about storms is not so much how much snow they produce or how strong the winds are, it's kind of where they hit. You can have, you know, the strongest storms, the absolute, you know, 10 feet of snow. And if it's in the middle of nowhere, if it's out in areas where people just don't live, that's not going to be nearly as bad as it hitting a populated area. And of course, Winnipeg being the most populated area, the storm hitting here is going to be a big problem. A lot of people living in this area, but you know, from what I've seen, everyone's handling it pretty well. I've talked to a few locals. They said, you know, they're just going to hunker down and wait. But the big issue that they are having, of course, is when they go out to the grocery stores looking for staples like bread and milk. A lot of grocery stores completely sold out of that sort of thing. So definitely one of those problems. If you do have to, if you haven't done your grocery shopping, you want to get out and do that. Do it as quickly as possible. The storm is moving in, but this is going to be a bit of a marathon storm. So it's not going to hit and be gone. It's going to be here for a while. So it's just going to get worse. The amount of snow hitting, piling up on the ground is going to get that much worse as we go through the next 24 to 36 hours. So definitely one of those things that you want to take seriously. As I said, so far I've seen people are pretty much taking this fairly seriously. Definitely not that many people on the street, which is good to see. So just let me stand out here and tell you exactly what's going on. Nadine?
Yes, certainly, Mark. Thank you so much for that. Yes, these are just the last couple of hours to get, you know, whatever necessities we need, because things are going to be ramping up for us as we continue through this afternoon. And I just want to show you here that widespread look of the snowfall accumulation for us. And this takes us into Friday as well. So by the time it's all said and done, easily over 30 centimeters of snowfall across parts of southern Saskatchewan and into all the way, I should say, into northwestern Ontario. So, of course, many of the hazards with regard to this system that many authorities have been warning, especially into southern Manitoba, folks, you know, if you don't have to travel, especially for this afternoon and evening, you want to stay off the roads, it's time to hunker down, because we'll be looking at perhaps road closures, power outages, and we've already seen school closures there. So as we time this out for you, this is ongoing for us now, but as we head through this afternoon and evening, you'll see that intensity picking up now for us across southeast Saskatchewan, extending into southern Manitoba. So Brandon, Portage-la Prairie, toward Winnipeg, toward Melita, in toward Winkler, the border there with North Dakota, and then stretching into northwestern Ontario, continuing to see that intensity sustained for us as we head into our Thursday morning. And you'll see a lot of the heavier intensity stuff with the mixing pushing into Northwestern Ontario. Now, Thursday into Friday, and even by Friday evening, we start to see the snowfall tapering off for us across the prairies and even into Northwestern Ontario. But we can't let our guard down just yet, because there will perhaps still be a couple of road closures because, of course, the snowfall would have accumulated by then, and we're still looking at some gusty winds. Now, the other side to this story, the eastern side of this system, is into northeastern Ontario, and that will continue to extend into southern Quebec as well. So you'll see we have concerns for flooding for us across northeastern Ontario, 30 to 50 millimeters of rainfall. Southern Ontario, Nicole, dealing with some thunderstorms that we've already seen this morning, and we have that risk for us across southern Ontario this afternoon.
Yeah, all part of the same system. So basically every season represented across this storm today, even in one province. Now we have Jenny Hagan, who's in Morden, Manitoba, showing us what it looks like there. The winds starting to pick up, the visibility going down as we look to just each and every hour. This will continue to deteriorate, and in areas around Winnipeg, we have the current visibility at 604 meters. It's at 2 kilometers for Regina, and over towards Kenora, 1 kilometer. So we will continue, I'm sure, to see these visibilities start to drop through the day. Now, as we take a look at the winds right out of the north today, projected forecast wind gusts could get up to 70 kilometers an hour. So that is going to be part of the problem. So even if you see the snow ease in intensity, it's going to be whipping around fresh snow not only on Thursday, but into Friday as well, especially into Northwestern Ontario. Still kind of dealing with it through Friday morning, causing tricky travel on the roads. Now, Mark Robinson has been in Winnipeg, where he has certainly already gone through the stages of it being not much to write home about to picking up in intensity.
Yeah, I think I'm also going through the stages of grief as well. I had packed away all my parkas, packed away all the winter stuff, because I was pretty sure winter was done for me. And of course, no, winter is not done with me, and of course not done with southern Manitoba by any stretch of the imagination at this point. Snow coming down, not too much at this point. That is probably not going to change in a huge way. We're not going to see a huge dump all of a sudden. What we're going to see is this level of snow just constantly coming in through southern Manitoba as this system begins to come in, almost stall in place, just move up north. Rather than moving straight east, it's going to move up north a little bit. And of course, that's going to pull that wind around, cold air around, warm air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico and fueling the snowfall here. Add on top of that that you've got not a lot of friction. You've got all the Great Plains in this area, so winds are moving right across those plains. This is my first good prairie storm, almost my good first prairie blizzard. So this is very exciting to me. Probably not as exciting to everybody living in this area, right, Nadine? I mean, I'm loving it. I'm sure I may be one of the few.
One of the few, Mark. Well, you're a storm chaser, so whatever type of storm it is, winter storm, summer storms, you are in the thick of it. And certainly southern Manitoba into northwestern Ontario in the thick of those storms. I'll zoom in here for you. You can see the wide expanse of the snowfall, and this has been ongoing for us throughout the morning for us. And you can see some heavier blues there indicating some heavier intensity snowfall picking up from Melita across to Brandon into Winnipeg and across into northwestern Ontario, and that'll continue to take us through the rest of today as well. Just to give you a snapshot of how expansive this storm is, let's say from Estevan across into southern Manitoba and pushing into northwestern Ontario, easily about 1,000 kilometers of snowfall for us for today. And with the winds as well, we'll continue to see this really ramp up across the region. So, this time of year, typically we see, starting to get into the thunderstorm risk for us. And certainly, this is what we are seeing. We've already seen some thunderstorms move across parts of cottage country and even through Nicole parts of southwestern Ontario. And this is just taking a look at some of the warnings or the risk we have for today, Nicole.
Yeah, that's right. And, Mark Robinson will continue to update us in Winnipeg. We are going to end our live stream coverage, though, as we come to a close here, but still continue to watch our updates on the TV side of the Weather Network.